In part 2 of Seeing Others and Ourselves Through God's Eyes, Colleen shares with us her identity crisis and how she learned to find her identity in Christ. Welcome to Drawn Onward. I'm your host, Teresa Jansen, and today I'm talking with Kolleen Lucariello about seeing yourself and others through the eyes and heart of God. So I think you've done some other writing on this whole idea of self-talk.
Well, I lost my identity. I went through a terrible identity crisis as a stay-at-home mom. I was a stay-at-home mom when my husband and I got married, and I spent, my entire upbringing or raising of children. I was stay-at-home. I stayed at home with them. And you know how we live in that stage of, when they do this, then I'm going to do this. And when they go here, I'm going to do this. And I had all of these ideas in my mind of what I would do when I was an empty nester. And I did not expect, when I became an empty nester, I did not expect to not know what I was supposed to do. And it really put me in a place of depression. And I struggled so hard to try to figure out whether or not I had a purpose anymore. And I sat, and then the Lord opened the door for me to do daycare. That's at the season where I did daycare. And I really didn't want to spend my time with children. I had just, raised my kids and they were off. And I thought that I would go out in the world and hit it big, be a star somewhere, but I didn't know I was going to be in my home again doing daycare. And one day I was reading the alphabet book to a little girl that I was watching. And, we can put on a bold front sometimes, but deep inside our hearts are struggling. And I was just in this place of struggle. And I began to read this book, and A was for apple in the book, but I saw A was for accepted. And it was every letter that I looked at on that page, I saw a word. And I knew that in my mind's eye, God was showing me something that I didn't see yet, that I didn't recognize. And so when Ainsley left that day, and I went right to my office and I began looking up scriptures. And I found all these scriptures that talked about A is for accepted, and B is for beautiful, and C is for changed. And I knew that God wanted me to realize that I had placed so much of my identity in what I was doing that I didn't know who I was. And so I just began to write this out. I had no idea God would turn it into a book. That was, that was just something that he did that I could take no credit for, because I was just writing from my heart. I needed to know who I was, regardless of what I was doing. I needed to become secure in who Kolleen was. Who is Kolleen according to what God says, instead of what everybody else thinks and all of the ways that we allow people to define us. I needed to know that God was defining me in that moment. And so I wrote a book, and it's called #BeYou, Change Your Identity One Letter at a Time, because that's what he did with me. I'm a simple girl. Just let it be simple.
I love that idea. And the #BeYou, where did the hashtag idea come from? That's kind of unique. And how do you alphabetize that in your library? That's the other thing.
I was part of a women's writing group called the Word Girls. And the founder of that, Kathy Carlton Willis, she just fed me so much information. And she encouraged me to come up with a hashtag that would define that aspect of the book. And so I always just wrote #BeYou, because, hashtags are big. It took me a long time to even figure out what a hashtag was, right. But, they're huge now. Everything's a hashtag. So when I rewrote the book from, the original title was The ABCs of Who God Says I Am. That's what was before, when it was published first. when I rewrote it, I decided that I wanted to use my hashtag in it, and then my my little line, my catchphrase was change your identity one letter at a time. So I said, well, that's got to be the title of the book.
So how has that change manifested itself in you? Because I know that God first had to do this work in you before you could bring it to print and help that work happen in someone else, or help God do that work in someone else.
I think I spent 2 years of my life crying as the Lord began to just pinpoint areas in my life that I was allowing others to define me. You know, being accepted, learning how to not always need the approval of anybody else. You know, and I think that that's one thing that probably goes back to my relationship struggles with my in-laws. I wanted their approval. And when I felt like I didn't get it, I struggled with that. And there was a pull, you know, began a tug of war almost inside of me as God was beginning to show me that I needed to be confident in his word. I needed to be confident in who he was. And I couldn't do that if there was this constant war going on back and forth, and the struggle of, well, I want to be approved of by these people. I want to be approved of them. So I'm going to kind of push God out in this moment, and I'm going to go with what they say I should go with. So it was a constant struggle to try to overcome that approval addiction and realize that God's going to accept me regardless of what other people are going to reject you. And you have to learn to be okay with that. I can remember writing that in my journal. Colleen, people are going to reject you, and you have to be okay with that. Not everybody's going to love you like I do, and you have to be okay with that. And the hard question came, can you be okay with that? So learning how to say, yes, God, I can be okay with that. As long as you don't leave me, I can be okay with that. And so it was a process everywhere. I mean, the book is really a journal about my experience. It's about all of those things that God had to walk me through to get me to understand and to accept that I am beautiful no matter what my age. I don't have to do anything to make myself beautiful, because in the Lord's eyes, he sees me as beautiful, you know? So I just think that we as women are struggling so much right now to try to find this identity that the world says we should have and we should carry. But it's always changing. They're always changing the mark, aren't they? They're always saying, you know, well, you kind of have to be okay with who you are. You just go do you. And then they tell you how you have to do you. And then when you don't do you the way they say to do you, then they're disappointed in you somehow. And so I just had to learn that I got to do me according to who God says I am, and not what the world says anymore.
Another thing that's a lot easier to say than to do. Mm-hmm. And I can really relate. 2 years of crying, I can see easily. Yeah. That
was like the hardest time of my life. Honestly, really just learning that struggle. And I felt like I was every day getting up to spend time with the Lord and just crying. I'd stand at the kitchen sink and I would cry because I just felt this thing inside of me it was like something was trying to grow and something was trying to get out. And God, it was like the refreshment of tears came, and the release of all of the years and years of trying to be a people pleaser and trying to live for other people and trying to meet expectations that people are putting on you. It was like the Lord just released it through tears.
Yeah, I think it's so common that it's something that we as women especially tend to do to ourselves and then also do to each other. And I think it's a miracle that God really worked that process through in you and then put it down on paper so that other people can have that experience as well. Colleen, you used a terminology while you were talking. It was approval addiction. And I've interviewed a number of different people with different types of addictions, everything from pornography and food and alcohol and things like that. But approval addiction, tell me more about what that looks like. And then is there a 12-step program for it?
Well, for me, approval addiction came at a cost of never wanting to make anybody mad, never wanting to have anyone mad at me. So whatever I could do to earn and win their heart and win their approval, I was going to try. I was going to be a worker bee in church. I was going to serve until I dropped dead if I had to, because I never wanted to disappoint anyone. And I always wanted people to think the very best of me. And I had to learn that sometimes you have to say no to things. I love to serve the Lord. I love to do things for him, but I'm not called to do everything for him. We are called to be a body, and we all have giftings and we all have talents, and we all need to go and we need to do what God has called us to do. And if I'm serving and spinning all these plates because nobody else is willing to step up, or because Colleen can do it, why try? Colleen really is just doing it because she wants you to like her. She wants you to see that she brings value to your life somehow. And so for me, not ever wanting to disappoint people, always wanting to say yes, wanting your approval, that meant a lot to me. And my 12-step program for that was crying the word of God, learning how God works and learning the giftings that he's called me to do, and learning how to say no when God says, no, this is not your time. It is not your thing. I had to learn that regardless of how disappointed somebody may be because I said no, I needed to trust that God was bigger than that. And that is still a struggle for me. I still struggle with that, especially with my grown kids. And there are times where I have to say, no, we can't come right now. We can't come for a visit, or no, I can't watch the kids right now. And I struggle with that because inside of me, that alarm kind of raises like, oh, I hope it doesn't make them mad. I hope they're going to be okay with that. And the Lord has had to remind me, Colleen, if they are, that's okay. But you have to do what I've asked you to do right now. He has to come first in my life. I have come to realize if I don't put God first, I'm out of step. And I don't want to be out of step. I was out of step for a long time, and I just don't want to be anymore.
So what are some of the things that God has called you to say yes to during this season of your life?
Well, I am a co-director of a women's ministry called Activate Her. My good friend, Chrissy Garrett, and we lead this women's ministry. We have women, we have chapters that meet, and we do a teaching video. And our foundation is built on three things that we really desire. And that is to help women build courageous faith, confidence in leadership, and connect in relationship. And those are all three things that I really believe that the story of my life all is very rounded in that. God had to teach me how to become courageous in my faith and let go of the need to win other people's approval, be courageous and confident in what he's called me to do and in who he is. And then as a leader, I did not believe that I was ever a leader. And now I look back and I think every step of the way, God was just constantly trying to teach me how to be confident in what he had given me the ability to do. And how you see yourself matters so much to God. Because if you see yourself as somebody who can't do what he's asking you to do, you're going to be afraid to try. And we all influence people. Wherever we are influencing people. So we're all called to lead others. And then connection. We need connection. We need that accountability. We need each other. We can come together regardless of our denominations with Jesus at the center. He is our core. And so that's where our commonality comes in play. Jesus is there. So let's gather together and let's connect together and let's just talk about Jesus and what he's doing in our lives and how we can glorify him. Because that's really what it's about, isn't it? About glorifying and honoring God.
Absolutely. That sounds so exciting. What a wonderful ministry. And if you were doing all of those other things, trying to make other people happy, you'd be missing out on this opportunity that God's invited you to participate in building his kingdom with this ministry. So wonderful.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So if people wanted to connect with you, what is the best way? Social media, website, those types of things? How can we find you?
Yep, I'm on social media, Kolleen Lucariello. I have an author page called Kolleen Lucariello, # the ABC Girl. And then we also have the Activate Her ministry. They can connect through the activateher.org. And we're Activate Her is on social media too. So yeah, I love connection because I love relationship with women.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'll put all of that in the show notes and then at the bottom of the video also so that people can find you because your name is not spelled the way that it sounds. And so people have to look in the show notes to find out how to spell Lucariello.
I know. That's been quite a name to carry over the last several years.
I would think so. Oh, well, Colleen, thank you so much for sharing. You've been just a real inspiration and a joy to me just through these few minutes. And I hope that you have been to others also. And I really look forward to checking out that book more. And it's an honor and a privilege to be in Life Repurposed with you. Here, let me stick the book up here. The Life Repurposed Project has been such a joy to meet all of the other ladies. I've been interviewing so many. And just like you said, there's this commonality that we all have because all of our stories are repurposed through the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ. And that's the common thread that runs through the story.
Yes, it is. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I feel so honored, honestly, to be amongst such a wonderful group of women.
Take a minute and like this video, and don't forget to hit subscribe.
Drawn Onward is more than an amazing palindrome. It's a production of TeresaJansen.com.